Jaya Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhova Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Varadauti Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Varadauti Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajat Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Rad Umadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Rad Umadava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Bharadhauti Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Bharadhauti Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Rad Umadava Kunja Bihari Jaya Rad Umadava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadikacharya also Tada Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Sabaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadata Sami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nivashesha Shinyavadi Paschatcha Deja Tarane. So, we're continuing with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. I'm right now at our Raleigh Preaching Center, or Raleigh Outreach Center, whatever you may call it, at the university. So, and we are broadcasting on Facebook, but just with a separate phone, so people can see us. Somehow the simulcasting service didn't work right now. So let's go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. We're reading from the 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila, and the 22nd chapter deals with the process of devotional service. So it's very easy to understand and very important for us to understand if we want to advance in devotional service. Why should we want to advance in devotional service? So we can be happy and love Krishna. My only motivation is just to please Krishna and please Prabhupada. So, but whatever your motivation, like we were reading previously in this chapter, Akama Sarvakama Moksha Karma Dharadi, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. Whatever your motivation is, whether you're free of material desires or full of material desires or desires of liberation, just worship Krishna very enthusiastically, and then you will attain pure devotional service. Like Rupa Maharaj, he was full of material desires, and he attained Krishna, and he forgot about his material desires. So when you attain Krishna, you'll forget about all this material nonsense. Okay, so let us continue with the Caitanya Caritamrta. And we're starting with text 101 in the 22nd chapter of Madhya Lila. So, Omagana Timidandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shiganve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorancia. That's ignorance, for those of you who don't know. Okay, so let's go to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All right. Text 101 of the 22nd chapter. Tavasmite vananvacha Tuthoiva manasa vidan Tatstanam ashvatastanva Modate sharanagataha. One whose body is fully surrendered takes shelter at the holy place where Krishna had his pastimes, and he prays to the Lord, My Lord, I am yours. Understanding this with his mind, he enjoys spiritual bliss. In other words, you want to enjoy spiritual bliss? From this day forward, I am yours, Krishna. I belong to you. And of course, as one gets very advanced in devotional service and attains the higher rasas, then one begins to think Krishna belongs to me. But that advancement is not for us right now. Our advancement for us means everything belongs to Krishna. And when you become a pure devotee, then Krishna belongs to you. Because that's the final step in pure devotional service, that Krishna comes under your control. And that's very rare to achieve that particular step. But Radharani is always controlling Krishna by her devotion. She wraps Krishna around her little finger, and Krishna has to dance for her. So these are the last two verses, and they appear in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 11, 417 to 418. Sharanalana Kare Krishna Atma Samarpana Krishna Hare Kare Tat Kalayatma Sama. When a devotee thus fully surrenders unto Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna accepts him as one of his confidential associates. Marcho yada tyakta samasta karma niveditatma vichikirshito me vedamrita tvam patipadyamano mayatma bhuyaya chakalpatevai. The living entity who is subjected to birth and death attains immortality when he gives up all material activities, dedicates his life to the execution of my order, and acts according to my directions. In this way, he becomes fit to enjoy the spiritual bliss derived from exchanging loving mellows with me. Of course, that spiritual bliss is the bliss of giving Krishna pleasure, loving, not simply that one is hankering for the symptoms of ecstasy like shivering in the body, hair standing on end. That may be, but these are symptoms of ecstasy. The primary, mukhya, that means primary, manifestation, quality is simply loving Krishna and simply wanting to please Krishna. And the ecstasies are secondary. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna 11:29-34. Krishna was advising his most confidential servant Uddhava about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And remember what we talked about, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana? Sambandha means to understand basically the relationship between all of Krishna's energies, which includes yourself. And Abhideya means what you do about it, your process of devotional service. Prayojana means the perfection, once you've actually done your Abhideya nicely. These concern one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the activities of that relationship, as well as the perfection of life. The Lord also described the characteristics of confidential devotees. Eve sadhana bhakti lakshana shuna sanatana yahaite pai Krishna prema mahadana. My dear Sanatana, please now hear about the regulative principles for the execution of devotional service. By this process, one can attain the highest perfection of love of Godhead, which is the most desirable treasure. So, regulative practices. Kriti sajja bhavet sajja bhavana sadhana vita nityasiddhasya bhavasya prakatyam ridi sadyuta. When transcendental devotional service, by which love of Krishna is attained, is executed by the senses, it is called sadhana bhakti, a regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service and practice. So let me just put this in common language. So here, this is what's called sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means devotional service in practice, because you got to practice before you can become perfect. You want to play piano, you got to practice the piano. You can't just pick up the piano and just like wail at the keys. You got to practice. So practice is done. So that's called sadhana bhakti. And practice means, you got certain scales, like in the piano. So regulative principles means waking up early, chanting the rounds, like that. Real simple stuff. Offering your food to Krishna. Keep it simple, sadhu. That's the KISS philosophy. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 122, because living entities are minute atomic parts and parcels of the Lord. Devotional service is already present within them in a dormant condition. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam, that's hearing and chanting, Bhagavatam 7.5.23, hearing and chanting. When a man is sleeping, he can be awakened by sound vibration, an alarm. Therefore, every conditioned soul should be given the chance to hear the Hare Krishna mantra chanted by a pure Vaishnava. One who hears the Hare Krishna mantra thus vibrated is awakened to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's mind gradually becomes purified, as stated by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. First verse of the Shikshashtaka. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. And that's also from the Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya 20:12. When the mind is purified, the senses are also purified. Instead of using the senses for sense gratification, the awakened devotee employs the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the process by which dormant love for Krishna is awakened. So Cheto Darpanam Marjanam. Cheto means actually the life force. It's really interesting. So Prabhupada translates it as the mind, but it's actually the life. Darpana, like Chaitanya. It's the same root. Cheto Darpana. Darpana means to actually go through it, and Marjana means to cleanse. To completely cleanse. Really, it's interesting. This is the process by which dormant love for Krishna is awakened. Because it's dormant. It's there. Your love for Krishna is there. It just has to be, wake up. Jeev jago, Gora chanda bole, Kota Nidra Yal Maya Pisa Chira Kole. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, wake up, sleeping soul, wake up, sleeping soul. How long are you sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya? Yuck. Utishta, Utishta, Udila Arana. Shavanadi Kriya Tara, Surupa Lakshana, Tatashta Lakshane Upajaya, Prema Dhana. The spiritual activities of hearing, chanting, remembering, and so forth are the natural characteristics of devotional service. The marginal characteristic is that it awakens pure love for Krishna. That's wonderful. Okay. Hold on a second. Here's another. This is another important verse. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Saja Kabunai. Shavanadi Shuddha Chitte Kareye Udai. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. So, of course, hearing and chanting purely, hearing from a pure devotee, then what's there already comes out. So in other words, you don't have to convince people to be Krishna conscious. This is one of the realizations I had when dealing with people. You don't have to convince them. Just have to keep them around long enough chanting, and automatically they become attracted. It's not that you have to berate people. Oh, surrender to Krishna or you're going to hell. Or the Yamatutas are going to come and get you. That's not what you do. So, Eta Sadhana Bhakti, Dvita Prakara, Ekavaiti Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti Ara. There are two processes of practical devotional service. One is regulative devotional service, and the other is spontaneous devotional service. What that referring to is sadhana is practical devotional service, meaning practice. Actually, more precisely, it should be practice. See how it's the word in Sanskrit. Yes, sadhana bhakti. Process of devotional service, which is actually practice. There's two processes of practice devotional service. One is regulated devotional service, and the other is spontaneous devotional service. So, in other words, under the heading of practice, you have practice because of the rules, intelligence platform, and then practice because you're spontaneously attracted to it. And also you begin to realize your spiritual identity, so it's a higher stage. The higher stage of practice is spontaneity. The lower stage of practice is practice just because those are the rules, buddy. You gotta follow the rules. And higher is, I love to follow the rules. I love to wake up early in the morning. I love to dance in Mangalarti. I love to see the deities. I love to eat prasadam. Anyway, I love to follow Ekadasi. I love to chant extra rounds. Today's Ekadasi, and then I chanted extra rounds. Not 64, but a lot. I love to do it. Not because I have to do it. Don't do anything because you have to do it. Do things because you want to do it. Okay, so then you may say, okay, on the first stage of sadhana bhakti, that's rules and regulations, which is called technically Vaidhi. So don't you think I have to do it? No, don't think you have to do it. Just think of why you're doing Vaidhi bhakti. And the Vaidhi bhakti practices are actually helping you achieve your goal that you're choosing to achieve or try to achieve. Everything should be phrased as I'm choosing. Because if you think, even on the stage of Vaidhi, which is the initial stage of sadhana, that I have to get up, then the mind will naturally rebel. Or you'll do it in a ritualistic fashion and you will be disconnected from what you're doing. What do I mean being disconnected? That means you'll be doing it externally, but internally you will not be done with your heart or with your mind. You will be disconnected. You'll be like a robot. who's just going through the motions. So that is very, very bad. So just always phrase things that you choose to do it. I'm not saying you have to choose, because then that would go against choosing. But if you really want to be enthusiastic about something, I'm choosing to do this because this is an important value in my life. I value this. So, Ragahina Janabhaje Shastrela Gyaya Vaidhi Bhakti Balitare Sarva Shastre Gaya. Those who have not attained the platform of spontaneous attachment in devotional service render devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, according to the regulated principles mentioned in the revealed scriptures. That's Vaidhi Bhakti. According to the revealed scriptures, this kind of devotional service is called, Vaidhi Bhakti. So, that's exactly what I just said. In the beginning, one has to hear from a bona fide spiritual master. This is favorable for advancing devotional service. According to this process, one hears, chants, remembers, and engages in deity worship, acting under the directions of the spiritual master. These are the essential primary activities of devotional service. Devotional service must not be executed for some material purpose. One should not even have a desire to merge into the absolute truth. One has to render such service out of love only. In other words, voluntary, at least voluntary, ahaitukiya pratiyata, no material considerations, and no deterrent. Devotional service must be without ulterior motives, that's what Prabhupada just said, and material conditions cannot check it. Gradually, one can rise to the platform of spontaneous loving service. A child is sent to school by force. Yuck. To receive an education, but when he gets a little taste of education at an advanced age, he automatically participates and becomes a learned scholar. Of course, we do not force people to take up Krishna consciousness, but one can actually push oneself to do it because one's choosing to do it. It's all voluntary. A child doesn't choose to go to school. Like Prabhupada, he didn't want to go to school when he was a kid. But his mother had to hire someone, had to pay someone to drag him kicking and screaming to school. But that was for his benefit. Children, sometimes, not that children should be forced generally. Generally, you should try to convince the child. But if the child doesn't want to go to school, because it's not always the most pleasant experience, then one has to somehow or other get the child to school. Otherwise, he'll grow up and be a Dumbo. One cannot force a person to become a scholar, but sometimes force is used in the beginning. A child is forced to go to school. Prabhupada is reflecting on his own childhood and read and write according to the instructions of his teachers. Such is the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and spontaneous Bhakti. Dormant love for Krishna exists in everyone's heart, and it simply has to be awakened. I was forced to go to school. And it simply has to be awakened by the regulated process of devotional service. I remember the first day I went to school, I was crying out of separation from my mother. I just melted in tears. That was my bhakti. One has to learn to use the typewriter by following the regulated principles of the typing book, which is actually true. Prabhupada says one has to place his fingers on the keys in such a way in practice, but then when one becomes adept, he can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at, it probably says keyboard. Hold on a second. At the keys, yeah. And I experienced that too. Before I took up typing in high school, actually, then I was just what they call hunt and peck type of typing. Just use two fingers and just look at the keys and say, where's the H, where's the A, R, I, R, E, sorry, and where is the space, and where's the K, R, I, S, H, and A. So, and then I took up typing, and it was a lot of practice, and then they covered the keys. That was part of the typing training. As at one particular point, they took all the covers off of the keys or cover the keys. So I couldn't see which key referred to which letter, and then I had to pass the test. And because of that, I can type today. But if you'd left it up to me, I would just simply be pushing one finger at a time on the keys. Of course, people do learn to text on the phone without training, and they can text sometimes faster than I can type. Similarly, because that's crazy, similarly, one has to follow the rules and regulations of devotional service so they are set down by the spiritual master. Then one can come to the point of spontaneous loving service. This love is already there within the heart of everyone. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem. So we were talking today that love of Krishna, manifestation of love of Krishna, is that loves all living entities, even cockroaches. We talk about a cockroach today. Even the cockroach, you feel love. This cockroach is your brother, sister. I don't know which one. Spontaneous service is not artificial. One simply has to come to the platform by rendering devotional service according to regulated principles. Thus, one has to practice hearing and chanting and following the other regulated principles by washing the temple, cleansing oneself, rising early in the morning, attending Mangalarti, Haribol, and so on. If one does not come to the platform of spontaneous service in the beginning, he must adopt regulative service according to the instruction of the spiritual master. This regulative service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So after a while it becomes spontaneous. I love to see the deities in the morning. I couldn't imagine. Even here I am at our preaching center. Of course, I have my own apartment. And guess what I do as soon as I get up in the morning? Of course, I chant. But I turn on my TV. Oh my God, am I in Maya? No, I turn on my TV, and I have on my TV a USB drive connected. And on that USB drive, guess what? There are pictures of Radha Golokananda, photographs of Radha Golokananda. And that's one of the first things I do when I get up. Of course, I wash my hands first. And I put this slideshow on the TV, and I'm overwhelmed looking at, as I chant the japa, at Radha Golokananda, as one picture goes to another picture, another picture, another picture. And there's some pictures of other deities, like my Govardhan is there too. And this is my focus. It's just overwhelming me. So I even have, that's my morning program here, because we don't have a lot of devotees, just me, myself, and I. So Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Haririshwara Shrutavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Cheta Ha Vayam. It's an interesting verse. O descendant of Bharata, O Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is situated in everyone's heart is Paramatma, who is the Supreme Controller and always removes the miseries of the living entities, must always be heard about from reliable sources, and he must be glorified and remembered by one who wishes to remain or become fearless. This is a quotation from Bhagavatam 2.1.5. It is one's duty to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the hearing process. This is called Shrutavya. If one has heard properly about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his duty is to glorify the Lord and preach his glories. This is called Kirtavya. When one hears about the Lord and glorifies him, it is natural to think of him. This is called Smartavya. All this must be carried out if one actually wants to be immune from fear. So, hearing, chanting, remembering. Remember, those are the first of the 3 processes of the 9 processes of devotional service. Mukha bahura padebhya purishasya shamai saha chatvaro gire varna gunair vipradaya pratak. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahminical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms, the Kshatriyas have come into existence. From his waist, the Vaishyas have come, and from his legs, the Shudras have come. These 4 orders and their spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vadaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. This verse and the next are quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2 to 3. So again, this is the Varnashram system. In other words, everybody fits in according to what they want to do. We have a certain psychophysical nature. And according to that, we engage in Krishna's service. If we feel like we want to be a teacher, if we feel we want to be an administrator, we feel we want to be a business person or an artist, do it for Krishna. Prabhupada said, do whatever you're doing for Krishna. And if you're happy being single, be single. If you're happy being married, be married. If you're happy going to the forest and living in the trees, go to the forest and living in the trees. And if you're happy being a sannyasi and traveling all around the world, getting on a different airplane every day when there's no COVID, then go for it. Joy. This verse and the next are quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2 to 3. Yaesham purusham saksharatma prabhavam ishvaram nabhajancha vijananti snadabrashta patanshadaha. If one simply maintains an official position in the four varnas and ashrams but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. In other words, Varnashram is there to regulate society so that you can pursue your spiritual path. That's why. Otherwise, it has no value. Simply to be an artist or to be a teacher or something like that has absolutely no value unless you have some goal in life. If you don't have a goal in life, what's the use of life? It's depressing. What is the purpose of your life? Someone asks you, what's the purpose of your life? Well, the purpose of my life is to be a good Brahmin. Why? Because I want to. Why? Because it makes sense. Why? I have no purpose. So you can do that with someone and really freak them out. Someone says the purpose of, like my mother said, the purpose of your life is to become a doctor. Why? She said, to please me. Why? That's your duty. Why? And then I joined the Hare Krishna movement. So unless you have an ultimate why, it gets depressing after a while, after you look in the mirror. Smartavya visatatam Vishnur, smartavya na jatuchit, sarve viri nishedachur, etayariva kinkaraha. Lord Vishnu, Krishna is the origin of Vishnu, should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. In other words, the principles of devotional service are all based upon, number one, the two principles, always remembering Krishna, two, never forget Krishna. Just do the needful. Of course, within some restrictions. It said, well, can't say, well, it helps me to take drugs to remember Krishna. That is not appropriate, because you're not remembering Krishna, you're remembering illusory Krishna, Maya Krishna. Illusory. Some people think they're remembering Krishna, but they're not. Some people think they're chanting Krishna's holy names, but they're not. There's an illusory manifestation, a veneer. This verse is a quotation from the Padma Purana. There are many regulated principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulated principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. So 24 hours daily is kind of difficult. In our Krishna conscious movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. For all the regulated principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. And so that's a vow that someone takes at initiation and chants 16 rounds, because if we didn't make that promise, someday we'd be on the mental platform. Some days we would chant 16, some days we'd chant 32, some days we'd chant 1. So there has to be something we fix up in our minds. And in the beginning, Prabhupada said the devotees should chant 64 rounds, and they said to Prabhupada, impossible. And then they said, but Prabhupada, what should we do? And Prabhupada said, okay, we'll reduce. 32. Impossible. And Prabhupada said, you rascals. No. And then they said, Prabhupada, we can't do it. Too many hours a day. And then Prabhupada said 16, but no less. Of course, if one is not initiated, we just say, chant whatever rounds you can. And if you can chant 2 rounds a day, 1 round on a regulated basis, that's fine. But if you really want to get in the rocket ship, then that's another thing. One must sell books or enlist life members, may sell books or enlist life members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. It's interesting. Making life members is actually a little more complicated than that. You actually, you have to remember Krishna, obviously, but then you say to people, you join the movement. Sometimes they used to make life members by telling them if you become a life member, you can stay in any temple free for 3 days all around the world. Or you get a free set of Prabhupada's books, or you get a... It was actually a wonderful strategy of Prabhupada to make life members. It wasn't something done to make money. It was to make people loyal, because once you get a membership, membership card, then you feel you belong. Actually, that's a very interesting strategy we should think about. The conclusion is membership cards. Really. That's really interesting. I was thinking of different things in the university, how we bring people to Krishna consciousness so they feel belong. We have to give people a sense of belonging. So Prabhupada had this life membership, and actually it cost the devotees more money, it cost the movement more money to give people the benefits from life membership than they got from the small donation that people gave. In the beginning, it was only 1,008 rupees to become a life member. Of course, rupees were worth a lot more in those days. There were, 8 rupees per dollar, something like that, when I first joined the Krishna conscious movement, and now there's 68 rupees per dollar. But still, that's very little money. They get all of Prabhupada's books. They get a lifetime subscription to Back to Godhead. They can visit any temple. They get prasadam. They get all sorts of amenities. And it was Prabhupada's strategy to bring people, to give them a concept that they were members. They were part of something. So it's really, really important to think strategically. Prabhupada was the expert, most expert in strategy, bringing people into Krishna's lotus feet. And, you can't just be like a spaced out space cadet. You have to really think strategically, strain the mind, always think on how to bring people to Krishna consciousness. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that you always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make one forget Krishna. These 2 principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. Very nice. Vivedanga sadhana bhaktira bahuta vishtara sangshepi haye kichu sadananga sada. I shall say something about the various practices of devotional service, which is expanded in so many ways. I wish to speak briefly of the essential practices. This is such an exciting part of the Caitanya Caritamrta. Guru Padashraya Diksha Guru Ura Sevana Sadharma Siksha Pricha Sadhu Marganu Gamana. On the path of regulative devotional service, one must observe the following items. Okay, now he's giving the essential items. A lot of this became transposed into the nectar devotion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In fact, much of it did. Although here, in this particular context, Lord Chaitanya is speaking to Sanatana Goswami rather than to Rupa Goswami. But Sanatana Goswami is the elder brother, the Siksha Guru of Rupa Goswami. 1, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master. These are essential items. 2, one must accept initiation from him. 3, one must serve him. Haribol. 4, one must receive instructions from the spiritual master and make inquiries in order to learn devotional service. 5, one must follow in the footsteps of previous Acharyas and follow the directions given by the spiritual master. Now, it's not that one is a blind follower of the spiritual master, but we understand that the spiritual master is actually the best friend of the disciple. Brahmachari, Gurukule, etc. Krishna Pritye Bhogatyaga, Krishna Tirthavasa, Yavan Nirvaha, Patigraha, Ekadashupavasa. The next steps are as follows. One should be prepared to give up everything for Krishna's satisfaction, because the Guru can tell you what you have to give up. And one should also accept everything for Krishna's satisfaction. 7, one must live in a place where Krishna is present, a city like Vrindavan or Mathura or a Krishna temple, or make one's home a holy place. 8, one should acquire a livelihood that is just sufficient to keep body and soul together. 9, one must fast on the Ekadashi day, and it is Ekadashi today. Drachvashvata go vipra vaishnava pujana seva nama paradadi dure visarjana. 10, one should worship datri trees, banyan trees, cows, brahmanas, and devotees of Lord Vishnu, and of course Tulsi. 11, one should avoid offenses against devotional service in the holy name. Prabhupada says there are 10 items in the beginning of devotional service up to the point of worshipping the datri trees, banyan trees, cows, brahmanas, and devotees of Lord Vishnu. The 11th item is to avoid offenses when rendering devotional service and chanting the holy names. Avaishnava Sangha Tyaga Bahushishana Kariva Bahugranta Kalavyasa Vyakyana Vajiva. The 12th item is to give up the company of non-devotees. In other words, we could still be with people who are not Krishna conscious, but we should be loving and give them Krishna consciousness, give them our association. 13, one should not accept an unlimited number of disciples. 14, one should not accepting unlimited. That's a lot, but not unlimited yet. 14, one should not partially study many scriptures just to be able to give references and expand explanations. In other words, out of pride. Accepting an unlimited number of disciples, devotees or disciples, is very risky for one who is not a preacher. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, good, Prabhupada explains this further, a preacher has to accept many disciples to expand the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is risky because when a spiritual master accepts a disciple, he naturally accepts the disciple's sinful activities and their reactions. Unless he is very powerful, he cannot assimilate all the sinful reactions of his disciples and has to suffer the consequences. Therefore, one is generally forbidden to accept many disciples. So one may say, what are you doing, Maharaj? Well, I'm actually accepting disciples, yes, but I'm accepting them in the service of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is protecting me somehow or other. One should not, I guess that's why I got old, one should not partially study a book just to pose oneself as a great scholar by being able to refer to scriptures. In our Krishna conscious movement, we have therefore limited our study of the Vedic literature to the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya, Rasamrita Sindhu. These 4 works are sufficient for preaching purposes. They are adequate for the understanding of the philosophy and the spreading of missionary activities all over the world. If one studies a particular book, he must do so thoroughly. That is the principle. By thoroughly studying a limited number of books, one can understand the philosophy. That's very important. Okay, so now we will take questions from all you lucky Prabhus and Prabhis. Let me stop sharing and unmute you all, or allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay. And actually, we're on Facebook too, but this is from my phone rather than from the computer because somehow or other the streaming service didn't work tonight. Sometimes that happens. So, who has a question? 46 people watching. That's fantastic. So, who has a question? Either raise your hand, uh, unmute yourself, or type in the text window. We are ready for anything you may do, or almost anything. Does anyone have a question? Please, someone ask a question about Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances.
Awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
glory to Srila
All
Prabhupada.
glory to Prabhupada. So, what's up? What's the question?
Oh, I have a question about you mentioned earlier in the class about the Abhidya stage. The Prayojana and then the Sambandha.
Yeah.
Now, with the Abhidya stage, particularly, is it
Abhideya. Abhideya.
yes, Abhidya?
Not
Sorry.
avidya. Avidya means ignorance, but abhideya, yeah.
Okay. So you said that it's possible to control Krishna, right? Is that right from the beginning,
No.
Sambandha?
No. Only in the Prayojana.
Okay. Is it like with Abhidaya stage? Is it like rarely achieved, or is it
No,
like
pure devotional service is the Prayojana is rarely achieved.
uh,
Abhideya is quite common. Abhideya
or it's
means the practice of devotional service, both the spontaneous and up to the level, I guess, of bhava.
okay?
It's that can be achieved, and it's achieved by I wouldn't say tons and tons of people, but it's not that rare. But prema, pure devotional service, is rarely achieved.
Yeah, because I was like thinking that maybe there are a lot of ISKCON devotees who have reached that level, the Abhidaya, or maybe it's rare.
Yes.
I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, just about everybody is in one particular stage of Abhideya. Abhideya has many different stages within it. Like
yeah,
Prabhupada was describing, there's the sadhana bhakti, the Vaidhi bhakti, there's
yeah.
the Raganuga bhakti, and even bhakti, bhava bhakti is within Abhideya.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
Okay. Thank
many, I
you.
mean, I would say the majority of devotees in ISKCON are actually in the Abhideya stage. Hopefully, they are.
Yeah, I was thinking like that. Yeah, and
And
if
that,
like
but as far as
eh,
prema, Krishna prema, that's a very rare thing.
yeah, because if Krishna comes in the dreams like in a Govinda stage, like in the form of Govinda,
Yeah.
would that mean that it is something to do with the stage of Abhidaya or
No, it could mean
no?
it could be sambandha. It could be sambandha
It
or
could be.
abhideya or prayojana. I mean, Krishna can appear like with Narada Muni.
Yeah.
Before he reached perfection, Krishna appeared before him, and Krishna said, "This is the only time you're going to see me, buddy."
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So, have to wait until you get completely purified. So,
Uh,
it doesn't necessarily indicate one stage of devotional service.
okay. All
Okay,
right.
thank you
Okay.
for the
Thank you.
question. And now we have Praneshwara, the famous Praneshwara. You have a question? You can unmute yourself.
Gurudev, like how we have like a spontaneous in devotional service to do like japa and many
Yeah.
up and downs come in the devotional service, but when it becomes spontaneous,
When one's spontaneous, one doesn't go up and down anymore. One just goes up, up, up. And it looks like it's really cold there.
yes, Gurudev.
It's freezing. Oh my God! You better eat a lot of rotis. Yeah, so spontaneous means just goes up and up and up, and one doesn't deviate at that particular point.
Yes, Gurudev.
All right. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for doing the Govardhan project. It's really important, and hopefully I can get there soon. This COVID.
yes.
How's the COVID situation in India? Are they locked down in a lot of places, or what?
Yeah, many places is locked down, and they have odd event system. Like if odd date is like closed and event date is working, and many places they work from home.
I see.
But they have already
Even an odd date is based on your birthday, or what? Or just what is it based on?
not birthday. It's in July, Gurudev.
Oh, I understand. Okay, yeah, so you got to be really careful right now. I think the whole
Yes,
virus thing will be over in 2 or 3 months and be normalized.
yes,
All right, so just stay healthy. Stay healthy. Don't die. Wait until I get there.
yes.
All right. Good to see you and your wife, your good wife. Some people, here's a question from Tulsi. You shouldn't be asking the question. Some people may say that our Christian conscious movement is supposed to be making so many pure devotees, but it can seem that there are not. So, how to understand? Uh, they will become pure devotees, like a seed will become a tree, but they have to be allowed to grow naturally. Okay, Sumukha, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, Guru, please accept my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, I have one question. This is regarding the chanting of the holy name. I have heard some devotees were saying that before you start chanting the holy name, you have to pray to the holy name. And sometimes I have heard that devotees say, Harinam Prabhu ki jai. So, can you explain to me who is this Harinam Prabhu? And when we before started chanting, because what I do, I just pray the Guru Pranam mantra, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, then I start chanting the Maha mantra. But some senior devotees say that you have to pray to the holy name before you start chanting.
I think whatever works. I just start chanting. I don't. I mean, the holy name is a prayer. Chanting the holy name is a prayer, and it's non different than Krishna. And so, Prabhupada didn't really pray to the holy name. What Prabhupada did was he understood the holy name as a prayer. Please, my dear Lord Krishna, Radharani, let me serve you. I mean, I bet it works. You know, if you want to pray to the holy name, I think that is just fine. It's just not something that Prabhupada did, and not something that I do. But it's fine. I mean, whatever works. Whatever works, then do it. I mean, if you want to say the pranam mantras to your guru 1,000 times before you chant, and it helps you, go ahead. Whatever helps you focus and have the right attitude towards the holy names, then that's the proper thing to do for you. It's an individual thing. Okay?
Yes, one more clarification. When devotees say Harinam Prabhu ki jai, whom they actually refer to?
Harinam is Krishna. So it's mean Krishna ki jai. Or the holy name ki jai. Prabhu means master, so the holy name is our master. Like Krishna and Radharani are our masters. So I mean, it's not inappropriate. I mean, it's fine. I don't use that particular expression. I don't remember Prabhupada using that expression. But whatever. If they want to, that's fine. There's flexibility in Krishna consciousness. All right.
One more clarification, Guru
All right. One
Maharaj.
question.
Uh, I heard in one of the lectures that one devotee said in Chaitanya Caritamrta, it says you should not chant the holy name in anxiety.
Who said that?
I think one disciple of Radha Swami was giving
I
lecture.
don't know.
No,
Does
He
it
no.
said
mean when you're in anxiety you don't chant?
You have to chant.
That's when
that
you should
because
chant. That's when you should chant. When you're in anxiety or distress or something like that,
Mhm.
when I'm in anxiety, I chant. That's the only way I can deal with anxiety.
Okay.
I don't know where.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's just one more
Thank you.
question from Nalini Kant right now. He's been holding on for a while. So you can unmute yourself, Nalini Kant. What's your question?
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my respectful obeisances. Gurudev, somebody asked me about how to refute Mayavad when they take the example of ocean, drop of ocean and the earthen pot you explained in many lectures, but I'm unable to find that lecture.
Well, it's very easy.
Uh,
A drop of ocean and ocean, they have the same qualities, but the quantity of the ocean, the quantity of drop is completely different. Of course, they say that the drop merges into the ocean or becomes one with the ocean, but we're not drops anyway. That's just a metaphor. Doesn't prove the point. It helps us understand the point. You can't just like uh, tear apart a metaphor and in this way uh, disprove or prove anything. Metaphors don't prove or disprove anything. They just help us understand things more clearly. They're not a methodology of proof. Methodologies of proof are things like, epistemology, like the Shastras, like the pure devotees speaking.
yeah.
Direct perception is even a certain type of methodology for proof. But but basically, metaphors never help us prove anything. They help us see things and understand things better. So it's not that you take apart the metaphors. I mean, like the Mayavadis use this metaphor, like we're like the air in a pot. When you break the pot, the air merges into. But we're not a pot, and we're not a drop of water. But using those examples, one can understand things better. Examples, or metaphors. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, Gurudev. Thank you, Gurudev.
All right.
Hare
So we
Krishna.
should end now. Uh, Thank you all for joining us through the technical difficulties, and we've been on Facebook at the same time through my phone, so simultaneamente. So we'll see everybody same time, same station tomorrow evening. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.